It is Matt Mosely Show, and Jake Spavital now joining us, Baylor's offensive coordinator and coach. What an off season it's been, and just you know, I'm just thinking your head's got to be spinning because you went to award shows. The portal, it seemingly never ends. I guess it officially did, although you just never know, do you? I mean, I was wondering the whole time, and in typical Mosley fashion, of course, I was trying to reach you during this time. But the DJ Lagway thing, as it's playing out, do you have enough inside knowledge to kind of be like, hey, we're good, we're all good here, or do you at least somewhat experience it like media and fans, like, dang, when is this ever going to end? Because that was kind of, and then of course it's like, okay, celebrate, and then it's like, oh yeah, but he's gonna go take this visit. That was quite a process, I think, for everybody to go through. Were you at least in contact enough to stay even keel, or were there some anxious moments for you as well during all that?
Yeah, there were some anxious moments. There's just so many moving parts to really the transfer portal, but also just quarterback recruiting in general. And I think one of the more fascinating things is talking through with really having somebody talk with all the agents out there that are like representing quarterbacks. So you can start to see the domino effect happen. But when DJ actually signed with us, I learned through the ESPN alert that he signed with us. So that was kind of like we were close enough to feel that, all right, hey, we think we can get this deal done. But you never know what happens with all these other schools that are going in there and just shooting their shot, and just trying to get DJ. And but there's a lot of domino effects when you just start talking to your buddies, at different schools, and you were asking them if they're going to take a transfer portal quarterback. And some are saying yes, and some are saying no. And, and you have to kind of trust like what they're saying to you as well, as long as doing your due diligence too, of just figuring out like through agencies where these quarterbacks are going to fall. And, we did our part. I thought he had a great visit, obviously, with his dad being, a legacy here, helped out a ton as well. And it's just the familiarity of that. But I'm saying they kept us on the edge of our seat all the way till the end because we were running out of our options because those dominoes were falling to other schools that were our backup options. They would have never signed with us.
When someone that was that huge of a recruit, I guess I should ask you, what were you were probably still at Cal. I'm thinking about like when he was coming out of high school, and I remember Sean Bell trying to recruit him, but we kind of all thought, unfortunately, probably not a shot at him, even with the legacy thing. There's going to be huge money involved. From afar, did you see him at any of those Elite 11 type camps and through the recruiting process back when he was coming out? What was your kind of awareness and thoughts on DJ even before he got to Florida?
Yeah, got to watch a lot of DJ like when I was at Texas State and at Cal. When I took the Baylor job, that was the first priority for me when I got here. I ended up going to Willis High School, and this was kind of like 24 hours before like signing day, and it was kind of a Hail Mary attempt, to try to get him. And I spent literally about 4 hours with him at his high school, just watching ball. Talking it through with his high school coach and his dad and his family. And, that's tough to make a decision with a new offensive coordinator that late in the process when all these other schools have been in the mix recruiting. But actually got to build a decent relationship, in the meantime with him and his family. So I think that did help, on the second time around. But, when you just watch his tape, especially in the high school tape, he's very multiple, and like they played an empty every single play. He's throwing it around and just has such a live arm, can make all the throws. And I think that's what a lot of people have noticed, from his high school tape. And with all the yards he put up and the stats, that's why he ended up being the Gatorade, National High School Player of the Year. And really, he's kind of been on that platform ever since he received that award as the Gatorade National Player of the Year.
how do you tailor the offense around him as you get to know him more and more? And obviously, you're going to have a different approach and different style than maybe the way Florida used him. But how do you kind of envision tailoring this offense around DJ? Like, what you talked about the live arm. I saw him live against A&M this year, and in the first half, I envisioned even back to his high school days. There's a couple of those throws you're just like, dang, that you almost have to see live in person to go, that ball got there 40 yards like it was nothing. How do you tailor this to him maybe differently than you have with Sawyer, who you've had a great run with these last 2 years?
Yeah, that's that's probably the most fun and hardest part to do is figuring out what these quarterbacks are capable of doing. And you've seen all the high school tape, and then I've watched all the Florida tape. I think what was it, around like 19 games, 18 games that he's been a starter for Florida. So there's a lot of quality tape to see what he can and can't do. On what he put on tape in his college years at Florida. But I've been able to meet with him a lot lately. He's a very smart kid. He's very smart, like a very experienced quarterback already because of all the games that he's played in college football, especially in the SEC. And you start to kind of ask him a lot of questions on, what are the plays that he kind of like to vibe with, and it's early in the process, he's always like, I like it all, and I got to keep weeding through all that to just be like, all right, tell me what you hate. Tell me what you like, all right, and then let's just start to build it from there. Now, a lot of this is going to have to go through to see what our receiver got a whole new, receiver core as well coming in, and to see what they're capable of doing and their strengths and weaknesses as well. But I'm always going to stay with the same principles of, the air raid and the kind of the wide split stuff that, really kind of what I've been kind of grown up in this profession on. It's really going to go back to really kind of what he did a lot more in high school. And so I've been asking him a lot of questions about, what was like in high school. I actually went in the recruiting process when it was open. I went to Willis High School and sat down with his high school head coach, Trent Miller, and asked him like all the freedom that he gave him and how much he put on him and how he likes to be coached too. And I think daily, DJ and I are going to keep building a good, just a good reputation with each other, just a good friendship out of it all. It's like what I did with Sawyer too. Sawyer was such a great person, a pleasing person. I had to kind of weed through all that stuff as well to figure out what he doesn't like, what he's good at, what he's comfortable with, what are the plays that are going to get him back in the rhythm if he's having a hard time. So I've been doing a lot of that with DJ right now, and I think you're going to see a lot of the vertical choice game because he has such an active arm and he can make those throws down the field. So we're gonna do a lot of those choice routes, which he has not ran many of. So you're going to see a lot of those throughout spring football, and just try to get him acclimated with that because I've watched a lot of Florida tape. I know what he like what he can do, and the concepts that he was used to repping all the time. So I know that he's comfortable with a lot of that stuff that he did at Florida, but I want to see like how we can get back into the spread game and how he's going to be with these choice routes. So. That's kind of been really the focus that I've been doing over this month and really moving into all of our meetings before we hit spring football.
You watched other quarterbacks, unfortunately, have some success running the ball against Baylor. And I think the question Sawyer got asked a lot, and, we weren't getting to talk to you a lot during that process, was kind of like, wait, Sawyer, why are y'all not running? And I don't know, maybe you could shed some light on that a little bit. But, obviously you like doing that. You like having quarterbacks who are extremely athletic, and you saw how effective that can be. Where's DJ in that? I remember talking to his dad early in this recent process, and he was talking about how he was trying to get down to a certain weight and, so he could be a little faster or more agile, that kind of thing. What can he offer you in that aspect of the game?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. Like just kind of talking with him, like at Florida, he was roughly around 245 pounds to 250 pounds as a quarterback. Like, that's a massive quarterback now, and that's probably the biggest one I've ever had to be around. But now he's leaned up a ton. He's probably sitting around 230, 235 right now. And he likes to, he always tells me that he wants the ball in his hands, and like, that's always a good sign of a great quarterback. And, if you watch some of the stuff that he did at Florida, like he did some power read stuff and some bash, like counter, QB runs that he was actually pretty explosive on. And I know he likes the Q draw system that we have in place that we did a lot with Sawyer. So I think that, he wants to run the ball. I think you got to utilize him in really situational football. I don't think that, like, I always don't want to run him a ton, it's just, like, do it in certain moments, because I do think with his ability to extend plays that he's naturally going to run on a lot of those, pass plays that are called. So, I always go back and forth on that to just kind of figure out what type of runner he's going to be. And then, he's a bigger guy, so he can take a lot more hits than what most guys can. So we're going to have to kind of experiment with that. But I do see him as a threat to run the football, in critical moments next year, or just if he needs to extend a play.
Does he remind you? You said he's the biggest that you've probably ever had, and it is good to hear that he's leaned down a little bit. I'm just thinking back, Fernando, for goodness sakes. And when you talk about running, that's one of the biggest moments I can, we just had that run call, which he humorously afterwards said he didn't quite know if he was supposed to run or pass. So he said he would stick to the run, because I think they came out in a little bit of a hybrid on the defense. But does DJ do anything or have any similarities to any quarterbacks you've been around? Because obviously you've been around some of the greats.
Yeah, and going back to Fernando, I utilized him in the run game, like pretty much what I did with Sawyer in a way. Like that Q draw that he scored on in the national championship game was a play that he's ran hundreds of times with me when I was at Cal. And and it's just the threat where, also on your zone reads and stuff, Fernando had a lot of success this past year as well on those. And I see DJ doing the same exact stuff as that. Now, when you go to like the Johnny Manziels of the world and the Kyler Murrays, that's just like a different speed. That's just a different kind of style of play. And with those two guys, those were shorter quarterbacks. I had to be in a lot more empty to try to give them a lot more windows to, be able to throw the football. And Johnny ended up winning the Heisman in 2012 strictly based off of scrambles. He rushed for almost 1,500 yards, I think, that year. And a lot of it, like, we didn't have really designed QB runs at that time. So that was him just extending plays and just playing his style. But I kind of see DJ as like a guy like I had at Will Greer at West Virginia, who really lethal in the pocket. And still can extend plays, and you can utilize him in some zone read or power read stuff that he's done before, and be very efficient in that and sprinkle those in. And Will's still playing for the Dallas Cowboys right now as one of their backups. And I think some of the stuff that they talk about when I go up there and see Will is that they just talk about how he can extend plays. He knows when to run. He knows when to be smart with the football. And but you can utilize him in those short yardage runs, which I think you have to have that in today's time. Is like these run boxes are getting so difficult to run the football in if you don't just control someone or have the threat of actually running a quarterback. And I think you're starting to see that through all the Heisman winners and everything as well.
And like Baylor used to have Gary Bohannon, as you recall, and when you can physically impose yourself as a quarterback, it honestly kind of galvanizes the whole offense, doesn't it, when you have that physical of a quarterback?
Without a doubt. And when you're sitting there looking at DJ and watching some of the tape that he was doing at Florida, and he's sitting there at like 245 pounds, roughly around there, and he's still running away from people and getting downhill on power run schemes. It's like you're having another big running back in the game as well. Now, that's I always got to protect that quarterback. Like that's like the main thing. So you got to be very aware of how often you're running them and everything of that nature. But if it's to get game on the line and get downhill, there's no question about it that you got to involve DJ in that.
Is he good at sliding? RG3 was horrible at it, and
we'll see, because I thought Sawyer was that too. I don't know if you saw some of Sark on some of those, but I'd sit there and make a comment on the headset, and I was like, I definitely would let Sark know as he walked off, because he was like, man, I'm the slider ever.
It's like, you don't want him to be too good at it. You don't want him to be too bad at it. And like Shaping was too good at it. There were a couple times like, hey, don't slide, fall forward,
Exactly.
What's your best Fernando Mendoza story? For people that don't know, you got him as a redshirt freshman. And I've heard you talk about, like as a scout team, he was like the scout team warrior. And then by the end of that season, he's, starting games for you. And to watch him, and I'm sure you remember him being like that. Was he, when you first encountered him, was he already this kind of, I don't remember a college football personality. Tebow had a big personality, and he was an inspiring character, but this guy's a different level, like a CEO, funny, charming, but then he'll kill you on the field. Like it's sort of a package I can't really recall seeing. Is that something that kind of happened over time, or was that the guy you encountered when you got to Cal?
That's the guy I encountered, and that's like I have so many, really, great memories of him, because he's just so different, and very unique in who he is. And like all these NFL scouts that have came through to see, Sawyer, they ask about Fernando all the time as well. And the thing about it is like what you see is what you get of him. Like a lot of people are like, man, that can't be real. He can't be that way all the time. Like he's like perfect and really crisp with his interviews, and he knows what to say, and he's always, thanking everybody else, and a very selfless person. And that's just who the kid is. Like he's got an unbelievable work ethic. Like the work ethic really just translates to the game. And like he would stay up there all night. He knew exactly what it was needed. He could literally watch every piece of tape. He knew what they were doing. Before really, like just based off their alignment and their body language, all that. Like he's so detailed in his studies that's why he's successful. But I just remember like watching him and hearing the stories of him on scout team, the previous year before I got there, of just how intense he was on scout team. And like it was like he wanted to win every single play, even when he was just trying to prepare the defense. But he's like, dapping up the offensive linemen for doing their job and blocking the defensive end. And this is scout team, and then like when he has this switch though, when he's like actually out there competing, that man, he's locked in. He's kind of gone through this like monologue with it, in his head, before he takes the field about, the approach, the demeanor, like never show weakness, just who he is as a person. And, man, there's so many just kind of bizarre stories to me where this can't be real life. And he just always is the same guy over and over. And now you're seeing him on the Pat McAfee show, or just, winning the Heisman and talking. And that is the Fernando Mendoza that I met the first day that I walked in on campus at Cal back in 23.
How did Baylor, what was the biggest reason Baylor was able to hold on to you? I just obviously, the offense is produced pretty heavily, especially in the pass game over the past couple of seasons. I think even Doug McNamee, the new AD, and I were talking, and he felt like that was a real coup that they were able to hold on. And I know you were one of the coaches he was referring to. How close did you come to pursuing those opportunities? Because obviously, this is a tough situation. This is I think to the outside and even the inside at Baylor, this in some ways could be looked at as a kind of a lame duck type situation. New AD, he didn't hire this guy. There were weird, crazy things that happened with the AD during this season. What was it about either Baylor or Dave's vision that you said, you know what, I'm gonna give this another year?
Yeah, when you first when you go down to like hot seat talks and all that, I'm a coach's kid. Like I was raised in this profession. I feel like every single year you're on the hot seat, so like I'm never afraid of that. Like I was sitting there, like in the off season, like I've been very fortunate. We've been having success offensively, and I had a lot of opportunities to leave in this offseason, and some were, head coaching opportunities at Group of Five schools that, I do believe that I could be a head coach again, and I think I'm a way better head coach. I would be a way better head coach than what I was when I first inherited at Texas State, and I know I'll be a lot better now. And I think that's just the growth and development that I've had over the years, and I'm very comfortable with here at Baylor. I love listening to the vision of Doug and what he's trying to do, and I think he brings a lot of excitement. This community has been very great to my family as well, and I've kind of moved around a lot. Really young in my career, I was moving almost every single year because I was just trying to get my foot in the door, and I was advancing up the ladder, and now I'm in a point where I don't have to go and make splash, go to a job to make a splash for my career. I know that we can develop what we need to here at Baylor. I know we got the resources and the support. I think Dave has a great vision on what we're trying to accomplish this next year, and my family's in a really comfortable spot. And there's been some hardships that my family has gone through, and this community has been great to us. And I just really enjoy my time, and I do believe in this university can do great things, and especially in today's time with the transfer portal, you can really flip a whole roster really quick, and get what you need and the deficiencies and really try to flip the narrative of what it was the previous year. You see it every single year, especially with like Arizona this past year, like how good they were from one year to the next. It's just fascinating to me what you can do in college football in today's time.
Do you even have time to look at the Signetti? Dave talked about that y'all needed to revamp and maybe make some changes to the evaluation process. Now, some of that, obviously, he may have been talking to the D-line, may not have been on your side of the ball, but I'm sure you saw some of that play out in the portal. Do you find yourself, though, like you look at, it's, what happened at Indiana, you just talked Arizona. Signetti brings 20 guys from James Madison. You go, well, is that just a one-time thing? It's a pretty amazing thing, whatever it is. Do you find yourself kind of studying how some of these other places, you just mentioned Arizona, do it, and that informs you as you're kind of trying to quickly, this is like speed dating, right? You're like, oh, Colorado receiver, I think I'd like to go on a date, do you study any of that stuff? Yeah.
And I study it all the time, like when I was at Texas State, I was there like in the COVID year. And then this is when the portal started really happening, was kind of in that kind of the year of 2020, 2021. Most people don't really recognize it till roughly around now, but in Group of Five, you're losing all your players every single year, and it was kind of like, what are other teams doing? And like, that's what was happening with Signetti as well. When he was at James Madison, like, your top players are going to get picked off and go to other places. And like, that's what was happening in the Sun Belt at the time. And he was the head coach of James Madison when I was the head coach of Texas State. So we'd always talk, and everybody was talking about, we would have pre-game discussions, like with other coaches in the league about, oh, here's my starting tight end. I'm going to lose him after the year. My quarterback's playing really well, so I got to find another backup because he's not going to be next year. And I've kind of just grown up, having to try to be a little bit ahead of the curve. So we're always like talking, discussing, trying to see what other schools are doing. And then you're now seeing the success happen at a national stage in Power Four, where a team like Indiana just has one of the most remarkable seasons in college football history. And that has to do with, what guys you're bringing in. But I think what is interesting about Signetti that we've talked about before he brings in production. He brings in production, it's the development piece is there, but you really want to find guys that are very productive in what they do. And do they like football? And do they enjoy football? Because like the speed dating aspect of it all, we had like 60 official visits in 15 days. All right. So like you're just running these guys in and out, and you're trying to figure out how they're wired. Do they like football? Like what are their intentions? What's their football knowledge? Especially just with quarterbacks, and then, you're just trying to figure out what they know, what they do, explain things. And you got to do it in really a 24-hour period. So you've got to I think that's what Coach Aranda is talking about is that we've got to be very calculated with the type of people that we bring in. Like, are they tough kids? Do they love football? Are they good people? And Coach Rand is big on, better people make better players. And we spend a lot of time on that. I think that's a big deal with like all the moving parts now of rosters, is making sure that these guys are good people and they like football and they're going to put the team first.
All right. And man, I really am enjoying this, but I want to be respectful of your time, because as we say, you're getting to know all these guys and watching film. And I think my viewers, listeners, whatever we do now in this YouTube world, would really want to know about some of these skill players you've brought in. Draylon Miller being one from Colorado, Hardly Gilmore, the fourth, and then Gavin Freeman. Again, there's, like you said, you'll basically revamp the whole team. You've had great receivers. I mean, we can point at the problems with Baylor over the last couple of years or whatever, but I don't think the receiver room's one of them. The receivers you brought in, it matched up. Even thinking, I saw Taz on the court last night attempting a half-court shot. DJ came out and was featured in that as well. But those guys you've brought in, what do they bring to the table? What kind of stands out? Because it seems like what I'm hearing is Miller may have some kind of uncommon type ability.
Yeah, Miller's the one that I had to figure out. I'm so excited for spring football just to see what he's capable of doing. You look at his Colorado tape, they had him in the backfield running routes. They had him at slot. But when you go up there and you watch him run, because we've been able to watch him work out, when you watch him, get in and out of breaks, you watch him lift, he's a big kid. Like I'm saying, I feel like you can play him outside, he can play inside, and they're playing him in the backfield as well. So I think he is a very experienced kid. He's played a lot of ball. And that's another thing that we're looking into as well, is that these transfers, like we open up in, Atlanta and Mercedes-Benz Stadium versus Auburn, which is a big game. Like, these guys have played in big games before, and I don't think they're going to be afraid at the moment as well. So I just like how Draylon, how he leads and what type of kid he is. But he's probably the most fascinating one for me to figure out what he can do, because they're utilizing him in the backfield and slot receiver a lot of Colorado, but I feel like he's good enough too that you can put outside as an outside receiver. So I'm going to mix and match him up all spring to just see what he's good at. But he is a big kid and a strong kid as well. When you get to Hardly is, he was at a very successful kid at Kentucky in the receiver room, and out there just making a lot of great plays. He's had a lot of great compliments, like the Stoops family, they loved him. They thought he did a great job. The receiver coaches out there at Kentucky love him. I think he brings more of some outside straight line speed that we need. So Draylon, I don't know how fast he is and how he's going to win over the top, but I think he's going to be a very physical presence underneath. But I think Hardly's going to bring some speed and some, some threat on the perimeter that's going to scare some defenses. And he has played in a lot of games in the SEC. And then, when you get to Gavin Freeman, that kid has a fascinating story, because he's played games at Oklahoma. He's played games at Oklahoma State. He just wants to be on the field. He doesn't care how or where, and that's, but he's played in a lot of very similar systems to how I've kind of coached, even at Oklahoma State with Doug Meacham. Doug Meacham was the inside receiver coach for me at Oklahoma State in 2010. You go to, Oklahoma with Jeff Lebby, who's got Baylor ties, all that. We've always traded stuff, over the years as well. So he's ran a lot of familiarity with us. And I think he's probably got the best feel, all right, for, coverage recognition and how to get open. Because when you run choice routes, the best ones just kind of have that knack to get open, kind of like those Danny Amendola's, Wes Welker types. And that's kind of where I see Gavin Freeman right now.
All right. Love that. And, when I start envisioning receivers from the past, when you start talking about a kid like that, and like that Presley kid for Oklahoma State came to mind. It's just like somebody that, again, may not have the prototypical size, but you desperately want that guy on your team because he's going to make tough catches. And by the way, you've had some of those guys. Some of them came from, Texas State and other. I mean, you've had some really good ones who make tough catches, and that's going to be fun, isn't it, to watch all these guys you just had, Sawyer and Cameron and Trigg, go through the draft process. And listen, Trigg, for instance, what y'all did with him was really remarkable. I mean, I think he had, of everything I've heard and talked to people, major maturity issues and things probably scouts would worry about. And yet I just think y'all figured it out and got him kind of focused on the right things. And it's kind of an amazing story. So again, that's going to be one of your huge success stories down the road. Who knows what Trig will become, but like, we've never seen that. I mean, I've only been watching Baylor now for about 50 years. And like, I'm sure they've had great tight ends. Ben Sims comes to mind, the great Ronnie Lee, who became an offensive tackle in the NFL, but nobody's done that. And so the only problem is when you've had an otherworldly talent like that, it's like fans are like, okay, who's doing that next year? Right? It's like, oh, Livingston, can he do that? Can Kloppenstein start making one-handed catches,
Yeah, like, to put it in perspective, I haven't seen it either. Like, and that was, I was really kind of making the point was, like, he finished like roughly around like second to Mackey. I'm guessing like he'd probably be right over the Mackey Award, and if he would have hit that, like, I think we have won almost every award, close to it, and or been nominated into those categories, like really in every college football award out there. So. We just, like, I always mess with Trig that, like, that was the one that we needed, man, to really kind of like hit all the trophies, just win that Mackey Award. But like, unfortunately, he didn't get to play in some of those last games of the season. But that kid's a special talent. I'm so curious to see where he goes, because I do believe an organization is going to get an unbelievable player.
Jake, thank you. Man, we've followed your wife's inspiring story and your family, and it's a lot to balance. Because coaching hours, don't always, it's not a ton of family time. So glad Baylor got to hold on to you, and really appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on the show for the first time.
You bet. Jake Spavital on the Matt Mosely Show. Really enjoyed that. What a great show today. Major women's basketball for tomorrow night. So to talk to the TCU head coach, that was fun. And then obviously Nikki Collin yesterday. So great stuff from Jake, and a lot to look forward to. Baylor football, as they'll turn the page and have an exciting quarterback and a great another really exciting wide receiver room. And my next conversation, I'll ask him about running back. I felt like I was keeping him too long there, but that was a lot of fun. It is the Matt Mosely Show. We will see you tomorrow at 1:00.